Well, good evening, everyone. This is meteorologist Michael Wilhite with Southern Indiana Weather. I wanted to just give a quick update on our chances for severe weather over the next 24 hours or so. Right now, nothing out there on radar, thankfully, but that will be changing, of course, as the day wears on tomorrow. What we're looking at here is the slight and moderate risks for severe weather that the Storm Prediction Center has put out. Everything in yellow, which includes almost all of our coverage areas underneath of a slight risk for severe weather tomorrow. But you'll notice that moderate risk does extend down into at least portions of Knox, Davies, and Martin counties, almost all of Lawrence, and pretty much all of Jackson counties there as well. And really, this is a pretty large area of moderate risk. Actually, this is a 45% zone of a chance to see severe weather within your location tomorrow, and we'll talk a little bit about the risks specifically associated with it or not. The further south you get, the less risk you get, and actually, I could easily see some of our southern counties not seeing anything. I could easily see us getting anything. We're getting mixed signals as far as what future radar wants to show. So let's go ahead and kind of go over that data. And I don't want to hype this up or scare anybody, but I do want you to kind of understand what's going on so that you can be weather aware tomorrow. What we're looking at here is temperatures for tomorrow. And just notice this bright pink coming into us. This is basically 90s infiltrating our area. Really, that'll be the first time this year that we've seen 90s in our area, and that of course is just plenty of fuel for heating up storms. You have a low pressure system that would be centered right over here at the corner of Iowa and Illinois and Missouri at the time. That's forecast to slide this way through the evening hours, and that'll make a pretty large swath of rain with it. But what you have down here is a very strong high pressure to your south, and that's actually creating sort of a ridge effect, and that'll be easily seen here in the models as we go out, and I'll kind of talk to you about it. But one thing we will have with this system that we haven't had with his other systems is plenty of energy. Tomorrow afternoon, this is the CAPES. CAPES stands for Convective Available Potential Energy. It's basically the amount of energy that we have in the atmosphere for storms to be able to work with if they were going to fire. And 3,000 units plus is what you see in this red, and that is an extremely large amount of CAPE. And basically what that means is storms have plenty of instability to work with. So instability is certainly there. EHI, Energy Helicity Index, is kind of a measure of tornado potential. And basically the green is showing from 1 and the yellows start 2. Really, once you get from 1 to 2, that's a very weak tornado threat. The tornado threat means it's there, but it means it's very limited in nature. So this isn't something that we would, I believe, have to worry about a large, widespread tornado event. Shows up a little bit higher up here where you have that moderate risk zone, but it's certainly not anything that southern Indiana would have to work with. Another thing we can look at is the lifted index, which is just kind of an amount, puts a numerical quantity on how buoyant the atmosphere is, how easy it's going to be for the air to rise and create thunderstorms. And what you see is you have some pretty decent lifted indexes up here where you have the moderate zones, but down here in our neck of the woods, not so much though. And that's really because we've got that ridge that's over us, and that's really going to hinder us from seeing some storms come down in here. And in fact, if you take a look at this product, convective inhibition, this is basically the amount of cap that you have in the atmosphere. And when you start to get in these bluer shades, that's bad. That means there's a lot of cap that the storms will have to overcome if they're going to actually fire and produce anything in our area. So you see plenty of reds up here. These are very low levels of inhibition, and the reality is storms can overcome those pretty easy. But by the time you get into these darker and deeper blue shades, we're looking at greater to 100, 150, 200 units of inhibition down here. And that's very, very hard for storms to overcome. It can be done. Caps can erode. Storms can punch through that cap. but it's not. It's very difficult for them to do. So that would certainly limit the amount of severe potential that we would have down towards our neck of the woods, which is kind of a good thing. But again, you see not that much to inhibit up in here, which would be kind of why I'm thinking that we'll see the majority of the severe weather up here. I don't think we will see a ton of severe weather down here, but the potential's are there, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Another thing that's going to inhibit it is the temperatures up about 5,000 feet up into the atmosphere. Here's your 850 millibar temperatures, and notice it's just warm. Whenever you have good warm temperatures that far up, it's hard for severe storm development to fire, because severe storms need good cold pool up in the atmosphere to really continue that rising motion and get up to that 30 and 40,000 feet thunderheads that you see with a lot of these massive storms. And that certainly may be possible up in here, especially in northern Indiana and Michigan and Ohio, where the temperatures are a lot cooler. But down in our neck of the woods, the temperatures in the mid layer of the atmosphere, the lower layer of the atmosphere, I should say, do concern me a little bit, and I think that's partly why we'll see some of the inhibition as well. This is going to be a problem for us getting some severe storms down here. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the radar views and get an idea of at least where we're at with this. This is the North American model NAM, regular old NAM 12 kilometer. This is forecast time for 8 p.m. tomorrow night. You can see a large swath of rain over northern Indiana, but pretty much rain-free down here in southern Indiana. So if you are going to the Du Bois County Bombers game tomorrow night, starts at 7 p.m. here in Huntingburg, I don't think that you'll have any problems for the game, or at least not the way the models are looking at things right now. I do think the majority of the rain is going to, and stronger storms will be confined to more northern Indiana over this time. But as we move in time, I want you to notice kind of the direction that we're moving here. And it starts to intensify overnight. We start to see a few things develop down in here, but again, look at all the amount of heavy rain, severe potential that's going to be up there versus the amount that we have here. And then also notice where this is tracking, almost in a east to west fashion. And you can see that very easily if you look at the 500 millibar product. This is measuring wind speeds in the mid layers of the atmosphere, about 20,000 feet or so up. Notice the east to west flow, very high wind speeds, 50, 60 knots. That's an extremely fast flow, which is going to basically equate to a very fast moving storm complex, as you saw on the radar there. And so I really believe the big worst parts of the storms that we see are going to stay well to our north tomorrow. I'm not too worried about a major outbreak here, but we could see some other little showers come down with it, and that's shown up really on other radars. The radar that I showed you here is our regular radar. This is run a regular NAM model, which is run 4 times a day. But we have some other high-resolution products which are run a couple of times a day or more. This is the 4-kilometer NAM. The other NAM that I showed you is 12 kilometers. So obviously this is a much tighter, stronger resolution. And you can see, this is clouds as well as the radar, and you can see the major storm of complex just really does stay within northern Indiana there. But you notice this little kind of fingerling line of storms going down in here. Now that does give me some reason to be concerned. Whenever you have a big line of severe thunderstorms like this up here, and then you have a little fingering off of that, sometimes you can get some isolated severe weather off of this. So again, will you see warnings on everything of this? No, probably not, but certainly some warnings can't be ruled out. And I think that's probably why the Storm Prediction Center has put us in at least a slight risk zone for down here as far as things go. Now this isn't the only model that we have. This is the 4-kilometer NAM, but we've also got some other models that we can use. Here's the 4-kilometer NMM on your left and the ARW 4-kilometer on the right. But again, these are the same exact time. We are looking at 4 UTC on Thursday, so this is midnight tomorrow night. Notice the wide variation in where these storms are located at the time. That's also troubling because you don't see good model agreement with where these storms are supposed to be. But notice how in the ARW model, most of the storms stay to our north, but you get it a whole lot further south here with the NMM model. And if we just kind of loop through this a little bit, you notice the NMM model model wants to bring a lot of this through our area, which could potentially bring us some of that severe weather. The ARW model doesn't really bring it through this area, a pop-up scattered storm or here or there overnight, but by and large, it just takes it completely away from us, whereas the NMM pushes through us. So again, you compare that to the 4-kilometer NAM that we were just on. Really, there's just not great model agreement right now. So this is one of those things that we're just going to have to sort of nowcast when we see the radar tomorrow, and we'll have to go from there. One final future radar to show you. This is just kind of we have a whole lot more that I could show you. This just kind of gives you the idea. Again, this is another one of those models. This is the 1-kilometer really high resolution HRW future radar. HRW stands for high resolution window. And again, if we were to go through all these, it basically tracks it like this. And so you get a little bit of a tail kind of skirting some of our northern counties, but you don't see much of anything developing down here. So really, that's the good news with this. Based on a number of things, I'm just looking at the 500 millibar flow going east to west. The storms that develop up in here logically should be tracking this way. When the strong winds in the mid parts of the atmosphere are the tracking mechanism that you would look at for complexes like these of storms. And really that should push everything out into Ohio. So I don't really think that we're going to see a ton of severe weather down here in our coverage area. I realize that we are technically under that slight risk for severe weather here in parts of our coverage area, and that's okay. I think it's good that we are under that slight risk because, again, as some of those models showed, we could have a few pop-up storms come down here off of that line. But I really do believe the majority of the complex of storms are going to be really from a line Indianapolis more north to up into Michigan and sort of in this area up in here tracking off to the east. That's my gut feeling on this based on everything I'm seeing. So I don't think this is too much as far as for us in southern Indiana to be concerned about. Do be weather aware. Understand that this is going to be an overnight event, so go ahead and turn your weather radio on. That would be a good thing to do. Make sure that you've got some way to get up in case there's a warning issued and you need to take action. But this isn't going to be anything that's overly major. Another couple of things that you can do, make sure you check out our website at southernindianaweather.com. I will be posting updates on here throughout the day. You can get our full 7-day forecast, and as you take a look at the 7-day, it looks a whole lot nicer behind this compared to, if I can get it to go, the internet's wanting to go a little slow tonight. Here we go. 93 for a high tomorrow is what I'm forecasting, so you can see the extreme heat and humidity. Again, I've put a chance of isolated thunderstorms in the afternoon only at 20%, but those scattered thunderstorms will be likely after dark, 70%. Some could be strong to severe. Again, not everybody's going to be underneath of a warning, and again, like I've said, I do believe the worst of this is going to go north. Some people have talked about a derecho forming. Realistically, in my opinion, is it possible? Yes, it is a favorable type of setup for those, but those are extremely hard to forecast, and I don't even want to throw the word out there to initiate fear in the public when the reality is it probably won't happen. It'll probably just be a good mesoscale convective system, a good MCS, if you're familiar with that term. So, but we'll see how it goes. Again, I believe that the worst of it will stay to our north. But after that, I want you to notice the big cool down. 93, hazy, hot, and humid tomorrow, really, but down to 83 on Thursday. So that's not bad. We'll take that after some 90 degrees days. And really, the scattered showers and thunderstorms are going to be in the morning. By the time everything clears out after noon or so, we should be pretty much rain-free and having some nice partly cloudy skies. And then the cool down really starts. 78 on Friday, 81 on Saturday. 84 on Sunday. Your Father's Day is looking like there could be some scattered thunderstorms that day, but we'll deal with that for another update. So, another thing I want you to keep aware of tomorrow on our website is that we will have, if you click on the Storm Center button, you can get our severe weather outlooks on this as well. They are not the nice looking ones that I showed you earlier or that I post on my Facebook site, but they are still on here, and you can track the severe weather as it goes. You can also take a look at severe weather alerts all over the state of Indiana and kind of get a feel for what's going on. There's a lot of neat things that you can do on our map. You can also track right here on our website with an interactive radar, so as the storms roll through tomorrow night, you can get an idea of where these storms are going to go and what you can do. By default, Intellicast, which provides this free app, goes out to New Jersey for some reason. Just slide it over here a little bit. Here's our current radar right now. You see not much of anything in our area. But if you go to these overlays up here, you can